The text came in just as I was reviewing a client proposal. "Hey Liv, I need a new car. Can you cosign?" I stared at the message, blinking at my phone like it was some kind of joke. Same tone. Same entitlement. Same brother. Outside my office window, the Los Angeles skyline shimmered in the late afternoon haze. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but the quiet hum of the city below was oddly comforting. I'd built this life brick by brick, one late night, one sacrifice at a time. And now Ryan wanted me to cosign. A small laugh slipped from my lips, the kind that isn't really laughter, more like disbelief wrapped in exhaustion. For years, he told me I was too emotional, too ambitious, too unrealistic. And now suddenly, I was reliable enough to put my name next to his credit. My fingers hovered over the keyboard of my phone. I could have ignored it, or said something diplomatic. But something inside me, that quiet, unshakable strength I'd earned the hard way, pushed back. Keep dreaming. 2 words. Simple. Sharp. Final. I set the phone down beside my half-empty mug and leaned back in my chair. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was powerful. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty for saying no. Funny thing was, there was a time I would have done anything for his approval. But that version of me died the same year he walked away. 5 years earlier, I was standing in the kitchen of our childhood home, a modest 2-story in a quiet suburb of Denver. The smell of burnt coffee clung to the air, and the hum of the old refrigerator filled the silence between my words. "I just need a little help, Ryan," I'd said, voice trembling despite every effort to sound steady. "If I can get the deposit for this apartment, I can finally start over. Please." He didn't even look up from his phone. "You're always starting over, Liv. Maybe the problem isn't where you live, maybe it's you." That sentence hit harder than I wanted to admit. It wasn't the first time my brother made me feel small. He was Mom's golden boy, steady job, flashy smile, always knowing exactly what to say at family dinners. And me? I was the emotional one, the dreamer who never quite fit their version of success. I remember gripping the edge of the counter, feeling the laminate dig into my palms. "I just lost my job, Ryan. I'm not asking for charity, just a loan. I'll pay you back." He finally looked at me then, not with kindness, but pity. "You said that last time. Maybe you should try being realistic for once." The words burned more than the tears I refused to let fall. That night, after they all went to bed, I sat on the porch steps with a duffel bag at my feet. It was cold, the kind of Colorado chill that makes you question every decision you've made. My grandmother's old keychain rested in my hand, a tarnished silver piece shaped like a small road sign that read, "Keep going." She used to tell me that every time life got heavy, when people close doors, baby, build your own house. So I did. The next morning, I packed what little I owned into my car, a sputtering, rust-stained Toyota that coughed more than it purred, and drove east until the mountains faded behind me. No plan. No safety net. Just the echo of Ryan's voice in my head and my grandmother's keychain glinting on the dashboard. That was the day I stopped waiting for anyone to co-sign my dreams. Los Angeles didn't welcome me with open arms. It greeted me with traffic, overpriced rent, and a kind of loneliness that clings to you when no one knows your name. My first few weeks, I lived in a shared apartment above a laundromat in Koreatown. The air smelled like detergent and desperation. I waitressed during the day and took online marketing courses at night, surviving on instant noodles and dollar coffee. Every time exhaustion threatened to win, I'd look at that keychain hanging from my backpack. Keep going. And I did. One night, after a brutal double shift, I met Marian Lee, a regular customer at the cafe. She was the kind of woman who carried quiet power, silver hair, tailored blazers, eyes that missed nothing. She noticed how I handled a rude customer with calm professionalism. After the rush, she slipped me her card. "You've got backbone, Olivia. Come by my office tomorrow. I think you'd fit." Turns out, she ran a boutique digital branding agency that specialized in helping small businesses grow online. I started as her assistant, barely knowing what an SEO report even was. But Marianne believed in me before I did. For months, I soaked in everything: how to pitch clients, how to design strategy decks, how to build confidence without apology. She pushed me hard, but she also reminded me that competence was louder than charm. 3 years later, when Marianne retired, she handed me more than a recommendation letter. She offered me her blessing to take over a few of her clients and build something of my own. That's how Luma Strategies was born, from a one-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper, an unreliable Wi-Fi connection, and one woman who refused to give up. I built websites on my kitchen table, sent proposals at midnight, and learned that rejection didn't mean failure, it meant redirection. Slowly, clients started to say yes. A local clothing boutique, a wellness coach, then a tech startup that changed everything. By my 4th year in LA, I'd moved into a modest but bright office downtown. I hired 2 employees, both women chasing dreams of their own, and bought myself a used Lexus. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I didn't post any of it online. Not the car, not the clients, not the success. Because silence felt safer. My family still thought I was getting by, and honestly, I let them. There was something delicious about building quietly, about knowing that every bill paid, every client signed, every step forward was done without their validation. And yet, sometimes at night, I'd find myself scrolling through old texts from Ryan, those dismissive, cutting messages. They didn't hurt anymore. They fueled me, because I realized something profound. You don't have to prove people wrong. You just have to outgrow the version of yourself that once needed their approval. When Ryan texted me that day about the car, I thought that would be the end of it. But 2 days later, my phone buzzed again, this time from Mom. "Your brother's coming through LA this weekend. We thought we'd stop by. Haven't seen you in ages, sweetheart." The message carried that familiar guilt-laced sweetness only mothers have mastered. My first instinct was to say no, to protect the life I'd built behind polite distance. But something in me hesitated. Maybe it was time. Saturday came warm and golden, the kind of California afternoon that makes the air shimmer. I'd just finished arranging flowers in the corner of my office, white lilies, my quiet ritual for peace, when I saw their car pull up through the glass wall overlooking the city. Mom stepped out first, her smile tentative but warm. Ryan followed, wearing sunglasses that screamed overconfidence and a shirt too tight for his ego. He looked around the building, clearly trying to figure out if he was in the right place. "Wow," he said, stepping inside. "Didn't realize you worked here." I smiled, offering them both bottled water as I guided them through the lobby. The marble floors, the modern art, the polished gold plaque that read Luma Strategies. I watched the slow realization dawn on his face. This is yours?" he asked, voice faltering for the first time in years. "Every inch," I said softly. The tour was deliberate, not to flaunt, but to reveal. Each framed photo told a chapter of my story, Marianne and me on the day I launched the agency. The first big clients campaign. The handwritten note that read, "Keep going," framed above my desk. We entered the conference room. Sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows, cities stretching endlessly below. Ryan walked around the long glass table, tracing the edge with his fingers like he couldn't believe it was real. "Liv, I had no idea you'd done all this," Mom whispered, her eyes misting. I leaned against the table, calm, grounded. "You weren't supposed to. I wanted to build something before I told anyone." Ryan chuckled awkwardly. "Guess I underestimated you, huh?" "Guess so." I met his gaze, holding it steady. "You once said I should try being realistic. Turns out, my version of realistic looks a little different." He looked away, jaw tightening. "You don't have to rub it in." "I'm not," I said gently. "I'm just finally telling the truth." Silence stretched. The city hummed beneath us. For a moment, it felt like time had folded. All those years of me begging for help, of him laughing, of me crying quietly in the dark, converging into this one brilliant instant. Mom sat down slowly. "Your grandmother would be so proud," she murmured. "She always said you had her fire." I smiled. I had her keychain too. Pulling it from my purse, I placed the small silver charm on the table. It glinted softly in the sunlight, The words keep going, catching Ryan's eye. He stared at it, then at me. You really did, didn't you? He said quietly. You went. Yeah, I said. And I didn't stop. He nodded, swallowing hard, pride and regret wrestling behind his expression. I guess I was wrong about you, he admitted. I exhaled, the years of silence between us finally breaking. You weren't wrong, Ryan, I said softly. You just didn't wait long enough to see who I could become. The hum of the office filled the quiet that followed, the sound of success earned, not given. And for the first time since I'd left Denver, I felt peace. After the silence settled, Ryan finally spoke. So, about that car, he said, trying to half smile, half laugh his way through the awkwardness. I didn't move, just let his words hang in the air. He cleared his throat, softer now. I wasn't really asking for much, Liv. Just, a little help getting approved. It was strange hearing him sound unsure, almost small. The same man who used to roll his eyes every time I mentioned a dream now couldn't meet mine. I set my coffee down and folded my hands. Ryan, I'm not mad about the text. Honestly, it made me laugh. But I need to be clear, I don't cosign anymore. His brow furrowed. You mean you won't help? I said slowly, I spent years learning the difference between helping someone and enabling them. I'm not signing papers for your car. But if you're ready to build something real, your credit, your goals, your self-discipline, I'll guide you through it. He blinked, caught off guard. You do that. I'll help you learn, not lean, I said. Big difference. Mom's eyes softened. That's fair, Ryan. You've had every advantage and never used it wisely. Maybe it's time to start earning things the way Olivia did. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't even know where to start. Then start small, I said. Budget. Save. Get a secured credit card. Learn how to manage money instead of chasing things that impress strangers. His laugh was bitter. You sound like one of those motivational podcasts. Maybe, I said with a smile. Or maybe I just stopped mistaking validation for love. He didn't reply. He didn't have to. The silence that followed wasn't hostile, it was honest. For once, we were standing on level ground. Mom reached for my hand across the table. You're a good woman, Olivia. Better than I ever gave you credit for. That caught me off guard. The lump in my throat was instant. You don't owe me that, I whispered. No, she said, squeezing gently, but I need to say it anyway. For a long moment, all I could hear was the faint hum of the city through the glass. The world felt still, like even time itself was giving me space to breathe. Finally, I turned back to Ryan. You don't owe me an apology, I said softly. Just show me you can be better than the version of you who once made me doubt myself. That'll be enough. He nodded, silent, eyes glassy with something that looked suspiciously like guilt, or maybe gratitude. As they left my office, I caught their reflections in the glass door. My mother's quiet pride, my brother's uneasy humility, and me, standing tall in the life I'd built from the ruins of their doubt. For years, I'd chased their approval. Now I was the one teaching them what self-worth looked like. And it didn't need a cosign. The following weeks felt lighter. Not because anything dramatic changed, but because I finally stopped carrying the weight of old expectations. Ryan texted me a few days later, not to ask for money, but to share a screenshot of his new savings account. Just $50 to start, but it meant more than any car could have. Beneath it, he wrote, "You were right. Small steps." I smiled at the message, heart unexpectedly warm. Maybe people really could change, not when you rescue them, but when you stop trying to. Mom began calling more often, too. Our conversations weren't filled with guilt anymore, just simple updates about her garden, her neighbors, her favorite shows. There was a peace in that, in learning how to love each other without old shadows between us. One Friday night, after a long client dinner, I drove home along the coast. The air smelled like salt and jasmine, the ocean catching the glow of the city lights. I parked by the overlook, rolled down the window, and just sat there for a while, listening to the waves and my own heartbeat. For the first time in years, I wasn't running from anything. I opened my glove compartment and pulled out that old silver keychain, My grandmother's words etched faintly across the metal. Keep going. It had been with me through everything. The heartbreaks, the rejections, the quiet victories no one else ever saw. And now, holding it under the moonlight, I realized what she really meant. It wasn't just about persistence. It was about growth. About learning when to walk away, when to stand tall, when to say no without guilt. I thought of Ryan's message, Mom's voice, and the younger version of me sitting on that cold porch in Denver, clutching this same keychain and wishing for a miracle. She had no idea she was the miracle. Tears blurred the city lights for a moment, but they weren't sad tears. They were gratitude, release, pride. I started the engine, the quiet hum of the car blending with the sound of the waves. In the reflection of the windshield, I caught a glimpse of myself, stronger, softer, whole. Maybe one day I'll tell Ryan the full story, how his rejection built the foundation for my strength. But not today. Some stories are better left as lessons time will teach for you. As the road stretched out ahead, I whispered the words that had carried me this far, not just a mantra, but a declaration of everything I'd become. I don't cosign anymore, not for cars, not for dreams, and definitely not for people who never believed in mine.